On this International Women's Day, when the world celebrates the women in leadership, achieving an equal future in a COVID-19 world, Center for Women and Law, Gregorios College of Law, takes this opportunity to remember the women who started the fight for equal representation. The idea of a Constituent Assembly was first proposed in 1934 by M.N. Roy. However, the actual Constituent Assembly was formed in 1946 on the basis of the Cabinet Mission Plan. The Assembly first met on 9th December 1946. The total members of the Constituent Assembly were 389, out of which only 15 were women. The Constitution of India was adopted on 26 November 1949. Let us meet the 15 women Constituent Assembly members and their crucial contribution in the making of the Constitution of India.
As long as untouchability remained, the word Harijan was meaningless and was akin to calling a dog Napoleon. Strong words by Dakshani Devi. Dakshani Devi was born in 1912 in Kerala and was the first woman Dalit graduate and member of the Constituent Assembly. She represented the Cochin Legislative Council and was nominated to the Constituent Assembly from Madras. She made key interventions on the issues of untouchability, forced labor, reservations, and separate electorates for Dalits. She strongly argued that the final draft of the Constitution should be adopted following a ratification through a general election. She called for greater decentralization and also proposed Constitution as a new framework of life. In 1977, she set up a women's rights organization, Mahila Jagrati Parishad, in Delhi. In 2019, the Kerala government instituted the Dakshani Devi Award for women who work towards the empowerment of other women in the society. Leela Roy, the only woman member elected from Bengal constituency, was a progressive leftist and feminist Indian politician and reformer. She was born in Bengal on 2nd October 1900. From a very young age, she dedicated to the cause of women's education and their upliftment. After the happening of India-Pakistan partition, she resigned from her post on protest. She was also the founder of the Jatiya Mahila Sankati, a women's organization in West Bengal in 1947. Durgabhai Deshmukh was a freedom fighter, lawyer, and a social worker. She was born on 15 July 1909 and was elected to the Constituent Assembly from the Madras province. She was involved in the freedom movement at an early age. Durgabhai intervened in the Constituent Assembly that include the national language, judicial independence, and human trafficking. She acted as a member of the Committee on Rules and Procedure and Steering Committee in Constituent Assembly. Durgabhai proposed Hindustani as the national language, but in the light of anti-Hindi agitation in the South India, she argued against adopting Hindi as national language. When the Assembly discussed provisions relating to appointment of judges, Durgabhai raised key points regarding maintaining independence of the judiciary. During the debates on Article 23, which deals with human trafficking, she argued against Devadasi practice. She was also awarded the Padma Vibhushan in 1975. I hope that those who call themselves the original masters of the land, the tribal people, will realize that there is no distinction of caste, creed, status in the Constitutional Assembly. I hope the smallest minority in the country will realize they have a jealous, vigilant, and loving guardian of their interest who will not permit the more privileged to encroach by a hair's breadth on their birthright of equity and equal opportunity in this country. Words by Sarojini Naidu. Sarojini Naidu was born on February 13, 1879 in Hyderabad. After her foreign studies, she returned to India and was elected to the Constituent Assembly from Bihar. She spoke about adopting a national flag in the Constituent Assembly and was a member in the Ad hoc Committee on National Flag. In the Constituent Assembly of India, she made a historical speech on the need to have an inclusive society. At the very outset of her talk, she expressed her concern on the partition of the country. Equity, equality, and freedom were her serious concerns. On behalf of those few ladies here, I hope that you will give us sufficient protection and opportunities for expressing our opinion in this house. This was the opening speech made by Annie Mascarene upon joining the Constituent Assembly. Born on 6 June 1902 at Trivandrum, Annie Mascarene was a member of the Travancore-Cochin Legislative Assembly between 1948 and 1952. She represented the princely states of Travancore-Cochin in the Constituent Assembly. Having strongly believed in federalism, she also supported a strong union at the centre. After independence, she was the first woman to become an MP from Kerala. From Parda to Parliament, a Muslim woman in Indian politics gives the autobiographical record of Begum Aizaz Rasool. Begum Aizaz Rasool was born in a princely family in Punjab and was involved in political activities from an early age. She was the only Muslim woman in the Constituent Assembly and actively participated in the debates on national language, reservation and property rights, and minority rights. Rasool was deeply involved in popularizing hockey in India. She was honored with Padma Bhushan in 2000 for social work. Malathi Devi Choudhury was an Indian civil rights and freedom activist in Gandhian. She was born in 1904 into a family of politicians, gave up the comfort of her life and her political position in order to join the fight against the system. She toiled in different parts of Odisha, helping different sections of people. A true Marxist in nature, she worked with and for the people. She raised her voice to help farmers against state repression, to fight untouchability and casteism, to educate children, and to elevate the conditions of women. In one of her letters, she mentioned that she felt that she was not fit for the assembly and she likes to work for the farmers and their welfare. Malathi Devi proved to be a woman whose work had a significant impact on the local as well as the national level even after her years. Amu Swaminathan was born in 1894 in Palakkad. Being the founding member of the Women's India Association, which was the largest women's rights organization in India, she was a part of the freedom movement as well. She was elected to the Constituent Assembly in 1946 from the Madras constituency. She believed that the fundamental rights and the directive principles of state policies will be the two pillars of the Constitution. That's why she regularly spoke for the same in the Assembly. Ms. Swaminathan also believed that the Constitution should impose fundamental duties on the citizens. With regard to duties, she observed that the freedom does not mean license without any limits. She was also an active critic of the voluminous capacity of the Constitution. She believed that the Constitution should grow by its own with time. Kamla Choudhury was an Indian short story writer whose writing had a remarkable journey ranging from gender discrimination, widowhood, female desires, exploitation of laborers, impact on mental health of women due to constant suppression, to humorous poems. She was born in Lucknow and was elected from the United Provinces in 1946. Later, she was elected as a member of Lok Sabha and actively worked towards educating girls in villages and backward areas. Also, she encouraged the khadi in village industries so it would help girls make a living. Sucheta Kriplani was born on 25th June 1908 in Bengal. She was elected in the Constituent Assembly and was included in the Subcommittee on Charter for Constitution of India. Most of us remember the iconic speech by Jawaharlal Nehru on the eve of independence, but many of us may not know that after his speech, it was Kripalani who sang Vande Mataram at the same Constituent Assembly. She also led the assembly in singing Sare Jahan Se Acha and National Anthem. She was the first woman Chief Minister of independent India. Whereas we believe that freedom and equality are essential to human developments, and whereas woman is as much a human being as man and therefore entitled to share them with him. Preamble to the Women's Charter of Rights and Duties. Hansa Jivraj Mehta was born on 1897 in Gujarat. She served on many committees like the Fundamental Rights Subcommittee, the Provincial Constitutional Committee, and the Advisory Committee of Constituent Assembly. She was the president who piloted the drafting of the Women's Charter of Rights and Duties, which demands gender equality in civil rights for women. Dr. Hansa Mehta also presented the Indian national flag in the Assembly on behalf of the women in India, which was the first flag to fly over the independent India. In the Constituent Assembly, she pressed for Uniform Civil Code. She was also a member who took part in drafting the Hindu Code Bill. Mr. President, it was my privilege in 1937 to move the first resolution after the inauguration of provincial autonomy in my province, demanding a constituent assembly to draw up a constitution for an independent India. Today, 10 years later, that constituent assembly is meeting here. Visionary words of Vijay Lakshmi Pandit. Vijay Lakshmi Pandit was an Indian diplomat and politician who was elected as the first female president of UN General Assembly. She was elected to the Constituent Assembly from United Provinces in 1946. Later, in 1975, she raised a protest against the emergency measures. Raj Kumari Amritkar was born on 2nd February 1889 in Lucknow. She was elected to the Constituent Assembly from the Central Provinces, Berar. She contributed to the adoption of concept of equality in the Constitution and also played a crucial role in the inclusion of Uniform Civil Code as a part of the directive principles of state policy. She was a member of subcommittees of Fundamental Rights, Minority Rights, Finance and Staff Committee, and member of the Advisory Committee and Provincial Constitution Committee. Later, she was the independent India's first health minister and became the first female Asian president of World Health Assembly. She also led India's delegation to the WHO several times and pioneered the establishment of AIIMS. As an activist in India Red Cross movement, she worked to reduce illiteracy and eradicate child marriage. Purnima Banerjee was an Indian freedom fighter and became part of the Constituent Assembly from 1946 United Provinces. She was responsible for engaging and organizing trade unions, Kisan meetings, and worked towards greater rural engagements. In the assembly, she intervened in the discussions around the preamble, preventive detention, and qualifications of Rajya Sabha members. She also strongly felt that, along with education, right to livelihood and earning of honorable bread must be made part of the fundamental rights. She also supported the concept of tax and that it should be calculated with respect to an individual's income and family condition. Purnima Banerjee believed that ultimate sovereignty lies within the people, and that's why she wanted to drop the word sovereign from the preamble. Renuka Ray was a noted freedom fighter, social activist, and politician of India. She continuously argued for a uniform personal law, arguing that the position of Indian women was one of the most inquisitional in the world. She was elected from West Bengal and made several interventions in the assembly, including women's issue on minority rights and bicameral legislature provision. For Ray, the larger interest of nation was of paramount importance, such as education. Ray also argued against special constitutional privileges and reservation for women. During the discussion on religious rights, Ray moved an amendment to bar religious instructions in public-funded schools. She was also not convinced with the bicameral legislature working in the Indian political setup. Secularism is an ideal she held up most with utmost certainty. Renuka Ray was awarded the Padma Bhushan in 1988. We salute the 15 valiant women who were the voice of the Indian women in determining the form and future of the Constitution of India. The women in India owes a debt of gratitude to these women who paved the way for us to be heard. Thank you.